So want to introduce ourselves. So again, I'm John Wirtala, accompanied by my colleagues Aaron Thorp and Alastair. We're part of the product team for eDiscovery, where we work with several of our customers and the users of eDiscovery to help optimize and make it a better experience. So today we'll be walking through mostly the updates to what's coming with the new eDiscovery Modern UX, which is already in general availability. There's still several new items that are being delivered, some that have just been delivered, which we'll walk through. But we'll also cover, again, what's being deprecated and the timeframes of, the new, when the old standard or the old classic premium is going away, and really covering the new experience today. So as we go to do this, I want to just remind everybody or ask everybody to, as they're watching the survey or the webinar, to really go and go to the survey that we have posted here and fill out the survey if you can after the webinar or during the webinar. This information that we get from the survey really helps us with upcoming webinars, but it also allows us with the questions that are answered to really identify even additional changes that we can make to eDiscovery. So all the feedback that we do get really goes directly to us, which is the product team, but we take that to heart, and it helps us identify maybe areas that we may have not have known, that may be gaps, but it really lets us improve the product. So filling out the surveys is very important to us, and that information is critical. So if you have time, I encourage everybody to take the survey, and we'll be showing this again at the end of the webinar. All right. So I wanted to go super quick just to set the stage here on the webinar. So again, we're currently in general availability. This is the Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal. So it's the new eDiscovery in the Microsoft Purview Portal, which everybody should be on the new Purview Portal now. We did start to roll out general availability in February this last February. So again, it's really walking through the modernized user interface, how the workflows go, what changes we've made. We did run a webinar last month on how this affects standard or E3 customers. It's a very similar experience for E5 and Microsoft Premium. But again, wanted to just let folks know that we'll be walking through the new premium features here and how this can affect you and your business. So I just want to, before we jump in, a big part of launching the new modern experience is really just trying to simplify eDiscovery experience. Those folks that have been using the classic experience and maybe haven't moved over to the modern UX, there was a lot of wizards. There's a lot of things that you had to set up every time you tried to make a change. It was a little confusing at times. Standard or the standard eDiscovery experience was a totally different experience than premium. So it did cause a lot of confusion with folks going back and forth. What we want to do is unify this experience across eDiscovery and standard, which we did. We also wanted to enhance data source management. So how we, manage the data sources that are in there, like the custodians, and make that more robust, try to make it easier, which we'll kind of walk through. We also want to simplify the advanced indexing experience. We've made a lot of changes to advanced indexing. There's a lot of times advanced indexing is now kicked off automatically when you add to a review set or when you do some searches. We've cleaned that up, and we are continuing to improve that experience. We also wanted to increase transparency and efficiency in reporting. So we added a lot of new reporting to this, which we'll cover a little bit in that webinar. But again, transparency as well, how long these processes are taking to run. You can run process reports, which we'll cover as well. But again, giving more insight of what eDiscovery is doing while we're getting errors, and being able to use those reports to give you answers as to why you're getting the search results that you are. We've also added additional export options, which we'll be covering. And then we did integrate with Security Copilot. We've covered that in previous webinars as well. We won't be covering that specifically within this webinar just for time's sakes, but we have integrated with Security Copilot and just touch point on a couple of things where Security for Copilot with the eDiscovery integration will help you write, say, KeyQL syntax. We can put in native language. Hey, I want to search for this, and it will actually give you a KeyQL syntax that you can actually copy and improve your searches. It also will help summarize some of your cases and summarize documents within those cases as well, especially in review set. So, you know, that we'll give you literature that you can look at if you want to dive into that more specifically. And then we'll also be looking at doing a few more webinars or one more webinar before the August date to focus really on some of these more key components within eDiscovery, more of a deep dive on certain aspects of it. So be on the lookout for that. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand this off to Aaron to discuss the new Purview Portal and kind of walk you through the beginning here. So Aaron.
Very good. Thank you, John. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about Purview eDiscovery. So if we can go to the next screen, John, very good. So, all right, we've navigated past the Purview Portal page and we're on eDiscovery and viewing our new cases experience. From here, we're presented a list of all of our eDiscovery cases, which include eDiscovery Standard and Premium cases that we've created within the classic experience. So now there is a single unified view of all of your cases. And if you look over on the left, you can still find the classic eDiscovery Premium, which is planned for deprecation in August. So we definitely want folks to be using the new experience. And with the new user experience, the goal was to have that single interface for both standard and premium customers. We heard lots of feedback from customers that having multiple workflows and different experiences for standard and premium could be challenging. So like John mentioned, today's webinar, we're really going to focus on those premium features and workflows. From this screen, we can filter our cases, we can sort them, we can group them. But for today's webinar, we're going to go ahead and click on Create a Case. All right, so at this point, we're going to give our case a unique name, and we can provide an optional description if we'd like. So we'll go ahead and put something in there that is descriptive for our case and click Create. So with the new intuitive search experience, we really wanted to make things easier and more intuitive for users. The key was less mouse clicks, less jumping around and navigating the UX. And you'll notice that you're placed right on the searches tab, so you can quickly get started creating searches and again, have just fewer tabs across the top compared to the classic experience. Again, wanted to keep things more intuitive and faster to navigate. Now, one thing to be aware of when you create a case, it will be created as a premium case by default, but it can be updated within our case settings. So that's what we're going to do here. And we'll just quickly run through a couple of options and settings that we have here. So we're under the case settings, and I just wanted to point out this screen that you have the toggle switch there where you can completely disable the premium features for a case if you wish. So this may be important for users that do not have their premium licenses, or for those customers that may be in mixed license environments to where they need to ensure that they stay compliant with their licensing. Again, today's session, we're going to focus on premium, so we'll leave this at the default and just take a quick look at a couple of more settings while we're here. All right, so these should look pretty familiar. These are just simply the user permissions, so those that would have access to our specific case. So just wanted to point out up at the top, this is where we can add users. That middle section there is where we can add role groups to our cases. And then lastly, down at the bottom, if you're, let's say, working with outside counsel or maybe just other external parties, and you want to provide them with access to review sets, you can invite those users underneath the guest users section at the very bottom. And those invitations, they would need to be approved by an admin. So we'll take a look at one more setting here quickly. So this is underneath our data sources section. So still underneath case settings, just wanted to point out a fairly important setting here, that middle one. When you're running those all people and groups searches within your case, you typically want to have this checkbox selected so that you can target team shared channels, even when you're targeting specific M365 group mailboxes. So I just wanted to point that one out, fairly important setting. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and hop back into our case and create some searches. All right, so again, back at the main searches screen that we just saw a moment ago, before we create our search, I wanted to talk about the new data sources tab that was just recently added to the new user experience. So we'll navigate over there. And so this should look familiar to those that have used the data sources tab in the classic experience. So we reintroduce this and it enables you to add locations to a case that you can then reuse across your searches and holds. The idea is that you're probably going to use the same data sources across most, if not all of your searches within a case. So great way to add those to your case. And then again, just make searches that much more quicker. So this is where we can start selecting and searching through our data sources that we plan to use in our case. So we can simply start typing in the first 3 characters of what we're intending to add. So we can search for a person, group, a team. You can search by the name, the email alias, the name, the alias, the email address, Exchange GUID. For SharePoint and OneDrive, you would enter the URL or the name of those. Now, if you want to bulk add a lot of sources, you can copy and paste a list up to 100. So those you would want to delimit by semicolons. So again, just simply copy and paste that semicolon delimit list right into the box there. And I just wanted to also point out that we do have a public roadmap item that we're tracking to bulk add data sources, just with some additional error checking and enhanced workflows. So be on the lookout for that. All right, so here we've selected a few data sources and I've also made sure to include a team so that we can see how that works. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and click the add button, which is at the very bottom. So then at this point now, we get the success message. We've successfully added 4 data sources. And again, in this example, we've added 3 custodians and their data sources, and we've added that Mark 8 Teams group. If at any point we need to add more custodians or need to add additional data sources, which is certainly common in litigation, we can always navigate back here to the data sources tab at any point and add those. But for now, we'll stick with these and navigate over to our searches tab. All right, so now we're ready to click create a search and we're going to leverage those data sources we just added a moment ago. So we'll click create search and we'll just type in a friendly name here. So the unique search name, we can give it an optional description, something that may be helpful for others that are reviewing searches in our case, and we'll click create. And at this point, we're going to click on either the add data sources down at the bottom left or the add tenant-wide sources. That would be if we want to search across the entire tenant. Now, we typically recommend targeting specific data sources whenever possible because that will provide you with the fastest results. I know that isn't always possible in all cases, but if you can, we definitely recommend targeting those specific data sources for the best speed and performance. In today's walkthrough, we'll select add data sources. And you'll notice here at this point, I've selected that second radio button at the top there. That's showing me those 4 data sources that I just added a moment ago. Now, that first radio button, that is the default option that would allow me to search across everything that I have in my tenant. But we're going to keep things really simple, really straightforward, and leverage those 4 that we added. Uh, Another thing that I wanted to point out is that there are a new set of radio buttons down towards the bottom there underneath that include. So in the flyout panel there, this allows us to quickly target both the mailbox and sites. So that will be that first radio button, which is the default behavior. But if you instead wanted to target only the mailbox, we could select the second radio button, or if we only wanted to target sites, we could choose that third radio button. Again, these were just introduced, so just wanted to quickly point those out. At this point, though, we're going to click Save and Close. And now we can see that we've added our data sources on the left-hand side. And another really nice new feature is the ability to explore and add gestures. So if we select the 3 dots icon next to a specific data source, we'll take a look at how that works. And so you'll notice that when I select that first custodian, Alan, I can do a number of different things from here. If I wanted to, I could remove the mailbox and sites, but I could also do things such as learn more about who his manager is, if he was a manager, who his direct reports are, and even more importantly, learn about the groups that either he owns or he is in. So all of those can be really useful when you're looking to add additional data sources, identifying frequent collaborators, groups that the user is in. So we'll go ahead and select one of those and see what happens. And then we'll get that flyout panel. So again, like I mentioned, all of these can be really useful for different purposes, whether it's a litigation matter or an investigation, or maybe even something else. Again, I find customers really like that ability to identify groups that the user is in, that last radio button, just so that it can help us target teams the user is part of, those groups and things of that nature. But we'll go ahead and back out of this for now. And again, keep it really straightforward. So then another thing that we can do once we've added our data sources, we can click the pencil icon to manage these. So not required, but it does give us this nice flyout panel to where we can see exactly what we've selected. So we can still make changes here. I've expanded all these data sources. And you'll notice that underneath the teams there that we can see all the different channels, whether it's shared, private, underneath there. So it just gives us a bit more visibility. And again, we can make changes here if we need to. But we'll go ahead and back out of this and keep it really straightforward. All right, very good. So we're going to start creating our search now. And you can see here I've added a handful of keywords. So after each keyword, I'm hitting the enter key. So I've typed in meeting, enter, finance, enter, etc. And that will build out the logic for you. So in this case, we're searching for all 5 of these keywords. Now, if you wanted to get more complex in the logic where you can really specify, the exact way that you want to target using ands and ors and things of that nature, we would recommending using KeyQL. It just gives you so much more flexibility to put together those really complex searches. But for today, we're going to keep it really simple and really straightforward. So we'll go ahead and click our add conditions. And you'll notice when I click my add conditions, I get a handful of some of the most commonly used options. So we're not limited to just these. These are just some of the commonly used options here. I'm going to click the show more, and that will show me the full list of all of my available conditions. So from here, I can browse through the list. I can scroll through there if I wanted to. I could search, filter, use those radio buttons over on the left-hand side to filter whether it's all conditions, the common ones, the ones that apply to Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and things of that nature. But let's real quick just take a look at 3 unique conditions that we've added recently. So I'll just very quickly point these out. The first one that we have is that unique identifier, which lets us target specific messages or site items. So using either the message ID or the path, we can quickly target those items. Could be really helpful in an investigation where we need to target those items. Next, we have sensitive information types or SITs, which let us search for things like credit card numbers or social security numbers, bank account numbers, things of that nature. We can even specify a confidence level, so really useful when we need to target those items. And then lastly, we have the ability to target sensitivity labels. So if we're searching for documents that might be labeled as confidential or highly confidential, things of that nature, it could be really helpful to target those items, especially for investigations or maybe even litigation purposes. So we'll back out of this and we'll just keep it really simple, really straightforward. And here I've selected type as my condition. And you'll notice that we get a few suggestions for the type. Now, we're not limited to just these suggestions. If we click the pencil icon, we'll get the full list in our flyout panel. So here we got the huge list of all the different options that we can select from, whether it's email messages, documents, contacts, even Copilot activity, which can be really useful when you're deploying M365 Copilot in your environment. So you may want to target those prompts and responses, again, for whether it's litigation, investigation purposes, or maybe even those search and delete scenarios. So lots of different things that we can do with the Copilot activity. Again, we're going to keep ours really straightforward. We'll just go ahead and back out of this for now. And at this point, once we're ready to run this search, I'm going to click Run Query, and then that will give me a number of options. So from this screen, I really start with two choices, the statistics radio button or the sample. So Alastair is going to cover the sample a little bit later, but let's start with the statistics. So when I select my statistics, I can pick and choose my options here. I know John's going to cover this in a moment, some of the different categories that we have access to and keyword reports, which are especially helpful when we're running keywords. This also allows us to control whether we do the advanced indexing. So by selecting that include partially indexed items, and then that sub checkbox perform advanced indexing, it gives us a lot more control over the advanced indexing versus what we had in the classic experience. Now, one quick thing to point out, when we're doing the advanced indexing, we are taking a sample of those partially indexed items. It's really just essentially an estimate to help us kind of gauge and understand if our search is generally or broadly correct and help us with that search creation process. So again, lots of new options here around advanced indexing. And at this point, I'm going to pass it off over to John.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. So as Aaron mentioned, so we got ready to do our search, run our query. And next is I'll kind of go through what happens when we do run our query. So as Aaron showed, he selected statistics on the run query page, and we'll cover the sample one as well. But once the statistics button was chosen and the options that he chose there, he runs query. Once our query finishes, it actually brings us to the statistics page here. So this is the top of the page. Again, it's going to show a summary of the total matches that have come through, locations that were searched, 8 out of 9, how many data sources that were run, and then it gives us some statistics here as far as what our search does. So we have here at the top of the page, will show us search trends. So data sources type, top data sources, top sensitive information types. In each of these windows, you could actually drill down more into and get more details. So if I scroll down kind of to the middle of the page here, just down a little, we also see we have top keywords and top item types. So again, maybe Aaron showed that he did a search with keywords. So we could actually look at, we see our top keywords. We can actually drill down and look more into this report. So if I click on this that's highlighted here, I could drill down into that report. And what this is going to do, it's going to show that all the keywords that I've had. So it's going to, I've clicked on the top 100 keywords report. It's going to note that the download condition report will provide a filtered set of results based off of the top 100 that we have. If we want to see the full list, we would then, down in that right-hand corner, we could go ahead and download the condition report. This will actually give us more information on, all the top 100 that we see, if we want more comprehensive view. But again, this is going to allow us to, dive down further into, hey, what are the top keywords that, that we're searching, or the hits and the locations that they have. So again, great report that really will show your results for all the searches you do. So let's go ahead and go to the bottom of the page as I'm scrolling down even more. As I back out, again, we covered the keyword searches. We had some of the other items here. Now, as we get towards the bottom, we have other items or information around the statistics. We have indexing status, top communication participants within the searches, and so forth. So again, these are like senders or recipients of emails, Teams chats, and so forth. And we also have top location type, are we searching mostly mailboxes or sites? For the indexing status here, this kind of breaks down all the index items and advanced indexing items that were resulted in the search. So here it shows, we have 72 index, 0 indexed after advanced indexing. So, there wasn't any partially or items that were indexed after that. But again, we could click on this report. Again, just like we did with keywords, and this will actually show us a breakdown. So again, here we're going to see, all the items that were indexed, the total number, the location types, the count, the size of these items, the volume, and so forth. So again, it's going to show us, the top items. If we wanted to see more, maybe the top 100 or more of the items that were indexed, all 72, we could go ahead and download the report and see a more detailed look of these statistics on the statistics page. So again, bottom of the page. So let's go ahead and, so now we've done our search, but for statistics, but now, as Aaron will show, we also have the option to choose sample. So before we choose statistics, it's going to bring us to the statistics page. Like I showed, show us the number of hits, all the types of, what resulted in our search as far as statistics go. But we want to take a look at sample, and we want to see, maybe is it pulling the correct data that we did? So I'll go ahead and back out. And if we ran a query and chose sample, I'll show you what that looks like here. So as we click sample, we ran our query. As you see at the top, we have the query statistics, and now the samples underlined. So we're on the sample page. What the samples page is going to do is the samples are going to be returned so I can confirm that my search is pulling back the type of data I need. This is not going to show me all the data within my search. So like before, it showed we had 72 items or more. Or 100, maybe you have 1,000. It's going to show me a sample of it. So it's not going to show everything, but it's going to let me confirm and let me know, yes, it's pulling back, from the query I chose. It's returning the data that I want to see. And so here we see, here are the samples. I could have the viewer on my right-hand side that's going to let me, view some of these samples. So if it's an email or if it's a, Excel sheet, it's going to let me do the Explorer view here on the right-hand side and take a look at these samples that I want to, make sure, okay, yeah, I'm grabbing the right thing. So one thing that we can also do while we're doing these statistics, or we're doing searches, or we're doing samples, we could actually dive in and take a look further into how those reports are processing, what was run, how it was run, were there any errors in this? And so when we've done our searches, and this applies to anything that we process, even review sets. But once we've done a process, so we've done a query, which kicked off a process, we could actually take a look into that further and why we got the results we did, or what it was searched, or any errors. So with that, I could go ahead and up in the right-hand corner, I click on Process Manager. So I could either do this, in the search area, I could do it from the case view, but I could actually go ahead and select Process Manager. And if I click on Process Manager, it's actually going to show me there on the left all the process types. So types of processes I've run within this case, or within the search. So as you saw, we had generate sample. We also had generate statistics. We ran both of those. We ran you through these. So again, I could go ahead and I could click on this and get more information. And because searches are no longer locked, with immutable information, so we can now, that information is now contained within the job report. So we could access via the process manager, like I said. So I could go ahead and choose the process that I want to look at. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and choose statistics here. Once I select that, it's going to bring me to the slide out page. It's going to show me kind of the overview of what I needed to do. I could also copy support information, say, I'm having issues and I need to get the job ID from support's asking me this. So again, this is going to allow me to gather that detail. But I could also take a look at, like we mentioned, the process report. So at the very bottom, I could click on download report. If I download report, what's going to be, it's going to generate several reports for me. It's going to say like summary, location, and a few others. So with this, I would generate the report. I'm going to go ahead and, for example, here I'm showing the summary report. So with the summary report, I can now take a look at, how my search was performed. So we can look at how we received the data. I could go ahead and take a look at, case name. I could take a look at the query I ran. So as we know, we just did a keyword search, and here it shows me meeting, finance, payment, investment, money. These are the keywords that I went ahead and selected in the query search that Aaron ran. You can see the start and end time of my query. So it only took a second. So that would be incredible. But anyways, it's going to show me the start and end time of that query, how long it took, and then it'll actually also say, did I have any filters applied to this? No, I didn't. It'll have any location restrictions and so forth. Showing the item count that was returned. So, we had 74. How many locations it searched, and how many it completed the searches on. So here was 11. It also showed me too, like if we had errors in this. If we did a review set, it would show, and I'll cover that, but not the report. But even if it was a review set, it would show, hey, this is how many Teams chats you had, and how many were transcribed or put into, overall, conversation thread. So that way, you may have more Teams hits, but it will tell you, yeah, we consolidated these into a thread. And so again, it'll give you numbers, it'll give you errors, show you errors if for some reason some of the items that weren't returned and why. So a great report to look at and utilize, especially if your numbers are off, or if you're wanting to know exactly why and how it did the search. So great new tool, and we could run that on any process. So with this said, I kind of talked about some of the review sets. Want to quickly go through, how do we add an item to the review set? So when you add an item to a review set, again, you could do this on the sample page that we're seeing here. You could do it on the statistics. But once you've run the query, either if you're getting a statistics return or sample, once that query's run, you could go ahead and click on add to review set. So a lot of people do add to review set. Some folks don't use it. They just may go to direct export, which we'll cover as well here in just a second. But a lot of folks do use the add to the review set, because what this does is they want to filter the data first. They may want to redact the data. They may want to go through filter, take a look at the data before they export it out. So it gives them that extra step to, manage the data, reduce the data before they export it out, to whoever they're sending it to. So a lot of times this will reduce a lot of volume and a lot of, data that's being sent across. So when you do click on add to review set, you do get the slide out here on the right-hand side. So it's going to give you several different options. It's going to give you, basically you need to add the name to the review set, and then you'll give you a bunch of different selections. So the first one here is like select items to include in the review set. So first we have like index items that match your query. So this is going to be fully indexed items containing content that match for your search, like keywords, like we did, date range, and so forth. So this is going to include, make sure that all the index items that match your query are going to show up in the review set. You have below that, you have a couple other options. One would be the index items that match your review set in the query that we just talked, but also to add any partially indexed items that may not match your query. And so what this means is that items that not fully indexed due to maybe their size, format, or maybe it was an encryption issue, like scanned PDFs, or maybe it was, like I said, size, like large files or password protect docs. If these were in there that didn't match your initial query, these would then be included in the case. And they may, they may be relevant even though the system could not confirm the match. So again, we're making sure that, if there's things outside of our query that we ran that maybe were partially indexed and didn't really match, we're pulling those into the review set too, so we could review those. And then lastly, you have the partially indexed items. So again, that may not match your query. So again, this is pulling it out of that second option here. Now we just want to return only partially indexed. So again, this will only return items that could not be fully indexed, that I just kind of explained. So again, we could just focus on, things that match your query, things that match your query and don't, that are partially indexed, or I just want to focus on the partially indexed ones. Just maybe you want to do that to review to make sure that nothing was missed in the index, or things that may be relevant to your case that you want to filter through. Some of the other items here next under that are like OneDrive and SharePoint files, where you could choose, so you could select document versions, so you could do the latest version only. You could do the last 10 to the last 100 versions, or you could do all versions. So you have an option to select what kind of versions you want. So like I said, just the latest, the last 10 or last 100 or all. You could also then as well select folder items. So like collect items that include subfolders or match folders. So if you have a search and it pulls up that item, or finds that maybe a folder that meets your search criteria, you could choose that, I just want items that match this search query. I don't want any other subfolders in there, only ones that match it. Or you could choose all items, even if they don't match the search query. So maybe you have a folder that matches the query, but there's a bunch of subfolders in there. You want to choose that. I just want to see them all. I don't need to know if those subfolders match or not. So again, you could pull in more data based off your search. And then you have select items in list and attachments. So here you could choose all SharePoint lists and any materials in the search query. So again, what this means is if you have a SharePoint list, like it's in a grid view, table view, it's going to pull in the columns and so forth. It's also going to, you could choose if the list has any matches in your search query or not. You could also say, hey, I want to see all the attachments. So sometimes these may be attachments within that SharePoint list that you could choose. So again, a lot of options that you can. And then as we scroll down the screen here, we can continue. We have the partially indexed items, again, that may not match the query, just like it is before. This is going to be switching the SharePoint list. And then you have OneDrive and SharePoint files. So here again, actually I covered that, sorry. So, as we chose that, we could actually then go down to messages and related items from mailboxes and Exchange Online. So, we've done our SharePoint sites, we've done all our other choices, and now we're down to messages and Teams messages and so forth. So here we have a couple options too, where we can include Teams and Viva Engage conversations, where it says collect up to 12 hours of related conversations when a message matches a search. So what this does is that if you have a single message here that may have been a partial message, may not have been threaded to anything else, it's going to pull conversations 12 hours before and 12 hours after that one message to try to align it, put that puzzle piece together to try to associate it with other chats. So again, you have that option to collect. You then also can then organize conversations into HTML transcript. And how I mentioned this before in the report. So what this means is that it's going to thread these messages into HTML transcript. And so instead of showing each Teams conversation as a separate entry in your review set, you could choose to have these threaded. So what it does is it pulls, say maybe there was 40 different 40 conversations related to one thread. It's going to pull those into one view on your review set. We could click and then you could scroll down and look at that thread. So that's going to help with reviewing. It's going to lessen the data, but it's still going to show you the context in all those conversations. So again, a lot of times when this is clicked, people are like, well, I'm getting less items in my review set than what it said returned in the statistics. Well, and this is why. This is where you could click that process report and show you, yeah, we threaded and combined, such and such, this many Teams messages into, threading conversation. So gives you that reason on why that you see less items, because it's rolled into one item on your review set that's a threaded transcript. And then lastly, you have access links to cloud attachments and messages. So again, this is going to let you collect items and links to SharePoint sites. So here again, instead of the attachments, it allows to collect the items in the link within the email. So it will actually allow you access to those attachments via the link in the review set itself. And here's the, so that was the bottom page. One thing I want to quickly mention too is when we do run, say, a review set or a query, we do have a review where it's going to show us a timeline. So it's going to calculate the time remaining. Now, this doesn't do it automatically. It will start calculating automatically, but if your search is, say, less than a few minutes, a couple minutes, it may not calculate the time. It may just spit out the results right away. Now, if it's going to be more than 5 minutes, it'll calculate and it should show the time remaining of your query that you ran. So this will show on data added to review set, and believe when you do run an additional query that Aaron had shown. So again, I'll go ahead and hand this off to Alastair now to talk more about holds. But again, this is, how we manage data. So once you've run the queries, how you look at the queries through statistics, how you add those to the review set. So with that, we could go next on to holds. So Alastair.
Here's John. So talking about holds, before we delve into the slides, I guess the first couple of things just to touch on is with holds in the modern experience, we've kind of looked to have a single source of truth. So when we think about how custodians were added to the data sources tab in Classic Premium, and you had the opportunity to apply hold through that workflow. In the new UX with the data sources tab, as we've kind of touched on earlier, there isn't an entry point to create the hold. So now the hold policies within the cases is our key area for managing and viewing the status of the holds within a case. So let's delve into the slides then. So there's a couple of things. This is kind of the original search that Aaron was showing. And just one thing we wanted to highlight is that within a search itself, there is an opportunity to create a hold directly from a search. So say you have done some initial discovery, looked at the statistics, done some sampling, and you feel that the information is relevant and you want to apply a hold straight from that search, we can create a hold straight from that search. And that will create the hold with the same data sources and the same conditions. And just to be clear, this is not to say that it's a query-based hold in this instance. So we would cover those locations and those and that conditions, and we would create the hold. But we can create it from scratch. So if we were to look at how that workflow progresses, if we just flip over to the next slide for me, John. So the hold policies, as I was saying, is our central location for all our holds that are contained within a case. We can create a policy from scratch. We don't have to base it off a search. That was just something we wanted to highlight. We can go ahead and use the new policy button, as you can see on screen there. We give the policy a name and a description. And once we've done that, selected create, we're in our hold policy. For the interest of time, we've already kind of talked around the data sources and the people picker component that you saw with search. The same experience is here with holds. So we can add our relevant data locations in the data sources section on the left-hand side there. And if we want to create a hold that is on all items in those locations, we leave the condition builder section blank, creating a blanket hold. But we can also, if we want, define conditions in there, whether that be date range or item types, for example. One thing to note with the new UX is that we've actually increased some of the limits that are associated with hold policies. So within the modern UX, in cases that have the premium features enabled, instead of having a limit of 1,000 mailboxes per policy, it is now 2,000. And for SharePoint sites, instead of being 100, it's now 2,000 sites per policy. So we've increased those limits within the modern UX and within the when premium features are enabled on the case. But once we've created our policy, this is the new view that you'll see when you go and look at it. It's going to give us a breakdown of all the locations that are associated with this hold policy. And it's also going to give us the hold status as well. So we can check quite quickly at a glance that the status of each of those locations, if there is any locations that potentially have an error associated with them, and investigate further and potentially retry the hold. If we want to interact with the policy, so whether that's deleting the policy, retry the policy to potentially attempt to remediate some of the data locations, we can use the policy actions section at the top there, and we can also turn off the policy. If you're looking to work with like an individual data location here, we can simply go back. So say in this instance, I wanted to release a del from a hold, I could come back into the screen here and I could remove a del and apply the hold, and that would effectively release a del from this hold policy. The other thing I wanted to just show, sorry, John, before we move on. The other thing I want to talk to is this ability to create a search of a hold. So it's two ways. Not only can we create a search from a hold from a search, but we can also take an existing hold policy that we've maybe set up at the start because we're very clear in the locations that we need to preserve the data. We can use the hold policy itself to create a search. And again, what this will do is it will create us a new search. It will maintain any of the data sources or conditions that we've specified in the hold policy, and we can then start doing, work with that. So whether it's modifying some of the custodians, the data sources we're including, tweaking the conditions, or just going straight to running statistics and sampling jobs. And I guess one of the key things I like about the new UX is some of the things around those jobs that were historically mandated. So, you run a collection, you have to wait for the estimates to complete, and it does sampling. We've broken those down. So, as we've been talking today, if you want to do statistics, you can. If you know exactly what you're collecting and you want to go straight to export, you can do that. We're not going to mandate that you do the statistics and sampling job. So that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about the new UX, and that flexibility. So that kind of covers the hold components. If we move on into export, so for export, and just kind of maybe as a refresher for all, within eDiscovery Classic, so whether we're eDiscovery Premium Classic, we had effectively kind of two export workflows. We had what I would call direct export, or direct export from search or collection, whereby we don't take the data to a review set. So again, within the new UX, that is similar to the E3 kind of workflow, is that we would just use the export option. But with a premium case, we can still do a direct export, and we can still benefit from the premium features that are available in it, which I'll cover through as we walk through this. But the same export options that I'm going to cover also apply from exporting from a review set. So if you do want to take that data into review sets to benefit from the additional metadata that we populate as we process it into the review set to benefit from that on the export, you can do that. But if you want to just do a direct export, we can. So there's those kind of two flows in our workflow where the export may occur. So if we select the export button, it will bring up the actually a very similar screen to what John was talking through from an add to review set perspective. I'm not going to spend much time talking about these options because this is the direct export flow. So if we were adding to review set, we'd make the same decisions. From direct export, we're presented with them because we haven't taken it through review set yet. So if we look at actually the relevant export options, so if we just progress to the next section, John, for me. So when it comes to the export type, so here we choose whether we're going to generate an item report or whether we're going to export the items along with the report. As you will all be aware, the item report is a good way for you to get additional visibility of the items that would potentially be exported because they either match the search or they're in the review set already. But we can proceed with exporting items with the item report in this instance. And then we have our export format. So the first decision we have is how do we want to present or store, sorry, our format for our email messages. So we have a choice between creating PSTs and storing the email messages within PST files, or we can choose just to export the .msg files for messages instead. We then kind of go on to this bottom section. And again, the intention here is to give customers some flexibility in terms of how that export package will be generated and how it will be produced. So we've got these 4 options at the bottom here. The first one, organize data from different locations into separate folders or PST, aligns with essentially will dictate whether we take different users and put their OneDrive and SharePoint data and email data into separate folder structures, or whether we will just collate it into one single folder. The next option around include folder and path of the source. So once you made that first decision, the second option is around, do we reflect the document path in SharePoint and OneDrive, like preserve that, so include the folder structure, or from a PST and an email perspective, mailbox perspective, do we preserve the mailbox folder structure within there as well. Condensed paths to fit within 259 characters is there to enable you to choose whether you truncate or not truncate. So in eDiscovery Premium Classic, we enforced truncation when we thought the file path was going to be too long. But now the option is there for you to select or deselect that based on your downstream processing. And give each item friendly name just to dictates whether we use the file name or the email message name for the item, or whether we use a GUID. The options that you see selected there is kind of equivalent of loose files and PSTs, the export option. If we were to select the message and unselect all those options, that's more associated with the condensed directory structure format. So once we've selected the export, it will trigger the export. We can go and view the process status of the job via the process manager. But when we navigate to the process manager to access the downloads, you'll see that we have the export packages available there. So it's important to kind of note that for There is no option to export to customer managed Azure Blob Storage. There is capabilities within the Graph API to programmatically download the content and place it somewhere you want. But for this, all the downloads are going to come directly from the browser. And those are the export packages there. So the call out is just become familiar, if you've not already started exploring it, with the new export package structure. PSTs will go in PST folder, items from OneDrive and SharePoint will go into items, and the report will contain the load file for all the items that were exported. If we just progress through, just highlighting here that you don't necessarily have to use the process manager. All exports will be collated under the export tab. And then if we start thinking about other things you may want to consider is modern browsers today often have pop-up blockers. So you may experience this pop-up. If you go into your browser settings, you can actually whitelist or allow certain sites so that pop-ups and redirects are allowed. And this will preserve across incognito mode or private browsing. So do set it to allow. If you keep just doing it allowing in private browsing mode, then you'll keep getting prompted. And if we, just one last quick thing is there was some questions around, does it always have to go to my downloads folder? The key thing here is that where the browser decides to place the download is based on the browser settings. So do revisit them. As you can see here, there is an option where it can prompt you every time. You could change the default location, but that is how you can then determine where you place the items that you're downloading. And the last quick call I would make as an action on the call is there is some changes to the structure of the load file. So if you are doing downstream processing, just become familiar with the new structure. There is no failed or error items. It's all just included in the items report with the status there as well. Quick call out to added by the index query that will tell you whether it's the index, advanced indexing, or if it was partially indexed item. So you can kind of filter and review which items have come from where based on your previous selections. And with that, I will just move to say that we obviously really, as John was saying at the start, we really appreciate any feedback around this session and help us understand what we need to deliver in terms of future sessions. So please do visit the survey and fill in the link. There is some additional resources we've collated together that can be used to help with this. We're adding to them every day, well, every week. So just keep an eye out for the security blog posts where we will be posting, where we tend to drop more blog posts as we determine the need for them. And with that, I would just say thank you all for joining us. I hope you found it informative. I'll hand back up over to Emily just to close this out quickly.
Thanks so much, Alastair. And thanks to John and Aaron as well for being our guests today and for sharing all of this great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/Azure Purview Community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.